Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have with me a familiar face, Atif Zafar, who is my co-host today. And we have Keren Leshem, and Keren is out of Tel Aviv, or in that area anyway, of Israel, and she is our innovator today that we're talking about some really cool opportunities for women coming along with some of the interventions, I guess we'd say, I will say innovations, but I do know what you've got coming along that would, kind of disrupt the space for women's gynecology and some problems. It would solve some problems that women are having all over the world, not just where you are. And we're excited about that. So let's see, what did I write down? It was, you are not only the CEO of OCON Healthcare, but also the WEF Tech Pioneer of 2022. And that's just one thing out of many accolades that you have received. I know there was a Forbes honor, a nice nod from Forbes for you also not so long ago. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want them to hear from you on that. Atif, why don't you do a quick intro on yourself, and then we'll...
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mary. A pleasure to be here. I'm Atif Zafar. I'm a medical doctor, actually, by training. However, I'm a passionate engineer, and I am a disruptor of different companies doing disruptive innovations in multiple areas, including high technology, medical devices, consumer privacy, social media, and a bunch of other things. So I'm delighted to be here and offer my guidance and advice and insights into what Keren is doing. And sounds like a fascinating product that we can use worldwide. I may have some opportunities for you in Africa that we can discuss later on.
Fantastic. Very good. Good place for it. And honestly, I think, like I said, I think what she's got going on is solves worldwide issues.
Excellent.
So, only 51% of the population.
But it goes everywhere. There are women everywhere that could utilize this. So definitely give us a little bit about your background and what brought you into where you're at now with OCON, and where's the why of this, where we're getting after, but we want to know where it came from. Where you came from.
I grew up in the US. I moved back to Israel to join the military. And after that, despite my mom being very upset, I did not go into medicine or didn't complete my medical degree. I started it. And I kind of stumbled across OCON Healthcare. I was in a completely different space. I've done a lot of work in the incubator industry here in Israel with a lot of startups, all the way through growing up into a large pharmaceutical company in Europe, where I headed all the mergers and acquisitions and all the corporate development. But when I came back to Israel in 2019, a few months before COVID hit, I stumbled across OCON. And I was interviewed into trying to help the company understand why the products aren't more popular than they were in the last couple of years. And very quickly, I fell in love with this technology. I inserted our first product, our ballerine, which is a long-acting reversible contraceptive myself. And very quickly, the board came and said, look, this company's been stagnant for 7 years. We think we're going to close it down. What do you think? And I, of course, did what every entrepreneur and also person that does business development does. I said, well, I don't know, let me check. And I did some due diligence. I looked at the patents and at the team and at the space. And I called the head of the biggest company in the United States that does intrauterine care. And I went back to the board and I said, you guys would be crazy to close down this company. We need to change the strategy. We need to find a CEO that knows how to do that. We need to bring our products to the US. This is impact. Find someone. I'll be their number 2. I promise to help. And they said, no, you're going to do it. I said,
you're number 1.
Okay. Could be a nice, adventure. So 3 years later and 20 kilos, we completely changed this company around. I'm so proud of my team and my board and our investors. We built a platform to deliver drugs to the uterus, to move away from all the harmful oral formulations that we take, and to really revolutionize the way we look at the female anatomy. I always have a joke that I heard from one of our physicians. that says, you know, women have different organs. And he said, I'm not referring to the brain. We have uterus, which is very different than men. And we need to look at that organ in the three-dimensional way that it's built into the human body, right? It's not a flat organ, it's a cavity. And in a cavity, it's much better to put a ball that could three-dimensionally cover the cavity with therapeutics. And there's so many indications and diseases and pathologies in women to and from the uterus that are so underlooked and undertreated and underdiagnosed. And so we're headed that way. And like you said, Mary, we got recently recognized by the World Economic Forum for the impact that we do as a tech pioneer. That gave us so much, kind of wind into our wings for two reasons. One, to see that the World Economic Forum finally sees women's health as a goal and as an area that they need to put more emphasis on, but also because OCON can really bring this innovation forward and help with other innovations and other focus in this space. So we're here, and we are a fantastic team. 85% of us are women. I do believe in gender diversity, so I have a few men.
Keren, can I ask you where it's its own market now, right? Okay, where is it in the world right now?
So today we really offer our first product as a service. What we've done with it, we created a proof of concept. We wanted to know if a three-dimensional ball stent, right? This is a stent. It's
Right.
Made of nitinol. It's a shape that retains its three dimension, even though it is inserted into the body as a straight line. And we really wanted to know if it's something that's feasible. Will women pay for it? Can doctors use it? What is the safety profile of it? What is the efficacy? And so we started out with our first ball. The easiest ball to make was a non-hormonal copper IUD. And this is still available around the world outside the US in 30 countries as a service to women. We're not a huge commercial organization. We're more of an R&D type firm, and we're working on, as you can see in the background of me, balls that are truly disruptive in this space. Now we put on different medications and formulations to treat other pathologies that today are either unable to be treated with a simple and quick and safe procedure, either with hormones or with very invasive hospital procedures, or drugs that are taken orally with lots of side effects that are very debilitating.
You know, I wonder if there's any for cervical cancer patients or anything like that. Have you gotten to that space?
So these are expensive hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're building on our platform therapeutics in this order, in this manner. So 1 in 3 to 4 women suffer from heavy menstrual or abnormal uterine bleeding. So that's our first ball seed. And then the second one would really tackle abnormal uterine bleeding from a hormonal version. So women that are younger and that cannot do a procedure that they may not return to fertility. The other additional balls are, of course, uterine fibroids. 7 to 8 out of 10 women. That's an insane market.
I've heard that.
Yeah. We have to tackle endometriosis. What a debilitating, horrible disease. And then we also want to develop a little chip, like an internal wearable on these devices, because we wear them anyway. And there you can really do lots of really cool stuff because you have a chip that can now either diagnose or monitor any changes to the endometrium for any uterine cancer. You could look at the microbiome. You could learn so much from the microbiome on fertility and on other conditions that we have. And of course, vitamins and minerals and anything we need to assess. There's so much, stem cells and blood in the uterus. So that's part of the plan as we grow.
Atif, I know she got your attention.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So just a few questions, I guess. So what kind of drugs are you able to deliver? Hormones is my guess. Cancer chemotherapeutics possibly too, or?
So that's a really good question. That's one of the things that I checked, are we specifically able to do this patented, and can anybody compete? And so we have a family of patents that kind of divides into three families. The first family of patents that is now granted all over the world talks about the three-dimensional space in the uterus. Okay, so you can put a line, a T, anything that is not two arcs that create a three-dimensional ball. So this ball, 3D space, belongs to OCON granted from China to the US, all across Europe, everywhere. In Israel, this is granted. The second family of patent, and this is where your question comes in, talks about what we can put on this frame. And this family, the second family, talks about any active agent. It could be a hormone, any chemical, any ablation agent, any pharmaceutical agent. And so this really gives us freedom to operate on this specific patented space. The third family talks about the formulation of the things that we do.
So, one quick question comes to mind also is, can you deliver drugs through this for other parts of the body? Like that can be absorbed to treat other, because if it's a drug delivery mechanism, I'm thinking you could potentially use it to treat other conditions as well. In women that may not be related to the uterus, but maybe uterus is being used as a mechanism to absorb the drug into the body.
We only have this ball to fit the women's anatomy within the uterus.
Okay.
I think we looked at disease categories that are major. Absorption through the uterus happens, but it's very, very minor.
Okay,
we know this from other IUDs. And so it wouldn't be the best choice to deliver drugs. We would probably still go orally. Systemic, absorption, which is actually the benefit of having a targeted delivery to the tissue, especially when you look at these diseases such as endometriosis and uterine fibroids and menopause, and
Exactly. Fantastic. Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so is it something that's potentially covered by the insurance companies, or is this just a self-pay kind of venture right now? I'm just trying to think,
these are all that's such a great question. These are all in the United States drug products, and they all have coverage and a code. And because they're drugs, they're on a national level, right? So they have a reimbursement code that's just one code across the country. Some of these products, especially the first one, are considered out of pocket outside the US, but most of them are drug products that are covered and reimbursed. They're considered therapeutics.
Gotcha. And what about in other countries? For example, in developing countries, is there a market for this? Is it expensive, or is it something that can be afforded by?
Absolutely.
We could, if I were to connect you with some folks that are as heads of state for different countries that might want to adopt this for contraception or other types of activities, would this be something that would be worth?
So first of all, if you look at our SEED device, this is the spherical endometrial ablation device. If you look at low to mid-income countries, also even in Eastern Europe, women have somewhat access to hormones, but that doesn't help all women. And some women are counterindicated to hormones, and their only other choice is a hysterectomy. That's a huge burden on the hospitals, huge burden on the women. The SEED goes in and out, a 30-minute procedure. It costs nothing to make. It's just a little device, right? That's formulated with silver nitrate. You could do it in any community. You don't need a hospital setting. You don't need anesthesia. You don't need any special delivery or refrigeration. It's just a consumable device. And how much money this could save, and how much access we could have to women in communities with this product. It's a super impactful product. So the answer is yes, of course. These products, some of these products are more higher end, like our ballerine as a contraceptive. I wouldn't put that as a LMIC product just because it's a higher end device. It uses nitinol. The copper on it is made from very high-end materials, but the other ones, of course, they would be much cheaper to make and have incredible access to LMIC. My idea is really to have every woman have access to these therapeutics, no matter where she lives. Why should that be, an issue if you live in Africa or the US or Israel or Canada or China?
No, I would imagine you've done some clinical trials with this to sort of show the efficacy and compare it to care or something like that.
Yes,
So,
of course.
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
We have really, really promising data. We're very excited about it.
Are you FDA approved in the US, or is this?
Not yet, not yet. As I mentioned, Atif, we're now raising our Series B to really get our seed and prima to the FDA and through. These are not very expensive or long clinical studies. The seed require about a year and a half of a study, maybe 150 women. So these are not very burdensome studies, thankfully.
Typically, device studies don't tend to be very expensive because it either works or it doesn't. You don't have a lot of other side effects to worry about. So compared to pharmaceuticals, it could take 5
we don't know
years.
if it's a device or a drug, the seed.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We requested a designation, but most of my team believes that it's a drug. It's a drug. Silver nitrate is regulated as a drug in the US.
I got you. Yes.
A drug, but either way, the burden is not very high for this type of device, and so or drug product. And so we're looking forward to bringing it to the States.
Interesting. Okay. Very, very, very good. Excellent. Let's see. And what kind of diagnostics can you do with it? I mean, can you do things like, I would imagine that someone who's pregnant wouldn't be, using this in some way to kind of diagnose.
You're going right where I was going with this. I was just going to ask post-delivery complications that are happening. Now the woman goes through, these emotional ups and downs and hormonal mess after deliveries or other complications that may happen afterwards that require expensive and long-term, maybe hospital stays and stuff like that could be dealt with like this at the point.
Post birth is really not an area that we deal with. Once you have one of our stents inside the uterus, just one has room to be in there. The uterus is very small. It's like a little strawberry. That's the only one that could be attained in the uterus. And so if women are looking for IVF treatments or to get pregnant, they wouldn't put a device inside their uterus. And on the other hand, women that just had a baby need to wait a few weeks before they can put a device back into the uterus. And so we're more in the disease, pathology, indication space.
And can you use it to do cancer surveillance, like for someone who's at high risk? So, for example, if you have somebody who's got a family history of cervical cancer or uterine cancer, you can insert this and just use it to monitor for early signs of cancer, potentially, or?
I believe that cancer would be an area that we could monitor with this internal wearable chip that we're planning
with a chip.
to make.
Interesting. Because that could be a huge win for folks that are, don't have access to, routine access to care or something. You can just insert it once and follow them over years, and if they're, and how long can you
create the biggest AI in women?
Yes, that's right. So
AI database.
Interesting.
Cool question for sure. Yeah, that's something I really want to do. Imagine a woman that is using a hormonal treatment and has a chip that can monitor anything from, her fertility to her microbiome to any changes in the endometrium thickness or color for any cancer. So that's exactly the chip that we want to work on.
Can you regulate hormonal release from this device as a function of time?
Absolutely.
So you based on the hormonal cycles, if someone is, say they have infertility, or they have for example, something like polycystic ovarian disease or something else, where the hormonal constituent sees
I see what you're asking. If it's some
can you fix
cycles
problems
of
that
the
are kind of?
No, this would be a sustained, controlled release over time that would, exactly put the same dose over every day period.
I'm thinking if you had a chip in there, you could use that to regulate the release amount over time.
You're talking 2050.
Okay.
Year
Okay.
2050.
I'm just long term. I'm thinking,
But stick
you know,
around, stick
yeah,
around.
stick
We may
around.
do that.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
let's let's first get fibroids and myomas and
Yes. Exactly.
endometriosis
Yes.
taken
Yes.
care of.
Small steps. Small steps.
Exactly.
Because one thing you could do is if you had a Bluetooth chip in there, you could actually use your phone to regulate the amount of hormones you're getting released.
And
Right?
open your
I
Lexus.
mean,
Yeah. Click,
yeah,
click.
that's right.
Lock your doors at your house, feed your
Exactly.
dog.
Yeah. So, we have a very similar device for our neuromodulation that will do that. For example, if you with our wearable medical device, we'll have a Bluetooth chip in there, and you can use your phone to regulate the amount of output, so you can
Yes.
control your symptoms based on the amount of pain you're having. So if you're having a lot of pain, you just increase the juice a little bit, it reduces it, and then if you don't need that much, you just dial it down. So I'm thinking that type of control mechanism could be deployed in here. You could actually very accurately deliver hormones and monitor their effects
When needed.
over
Yeah,
time
amazing.
as needed.
I wonder how that would work in the uterus where you cannot self-remove it, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
has to stay
yeah.
in there for a long time. I'm sure
Right.
technology will get there,
Yeah,
and we'll be able to adopt it. I'm sure.
yeah. It's a future use case.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
Well, Karen, the next step then, of course, get the funding in place. And then from there, what is the next achievement or next goal that you want to do with the funding, so that we can get an idea for the next 2 or 3 years what you guys are going to be working on specifically?
So we're now to basically complete the seed development and clinical development to get it into an approved product in the US and Europe.
We've got that wonderful Zoom thing happening.
And
There we go.
hormones that are either taken orally today or that are new entity drugs that we would like to do as.
She'll come back. I have faith.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
Yeah, this happens. Karen, you're frozen if you can hear me. I don't know if you can. Let's see. Take a second. Really cool stuff, though. I'm
Oh
excited
yeah,
about
it's
this.
fantastic. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully she will. Oh, she'll probably have to come back in. Yeah, here she comes.
Yeah.
There you are.
What happened?
Yeah, you dropped out. I don't know. You got frozen there for a minute, but so we were talking about where this was going in the next couple of years once you get your funding in place. Yeah.
Yeah, so we really want to bring this innovation to the US. I think the market in the US needs disruptive technology to make sure women have more choices, safer choices, less invasive choices they can have in their doctor's office. And when you look at these balls, it's the same healthcare professional that offers, he's going to have an array of balls, and then he can offer them for contraception. He can offer them for normal uterine bleeding or heavy menstrual bleeding. He can offer them then for endometriosis and for uterine fibroids. It's the same healthcare professional that creates, all these indications on the same delivery mechanism. And so we want to start by introducing the seed and then the prima, and then we have others that we'd like to bring to the market. And of course, expand our offering to China and to Japan and to Europe for sure, and to South America.
Now, do you have to be an OBGYN to insert this, or can a primary care doc do it? A family practitioner, anybody else?
Depends on the territory. It depends on the territory. In the United States, for example, contraceptive devices are also done by GPs and midwives. I don't know if GPs, but midwives for sure. Others would have to require an OBGYN.
Gotcha. Do you need any kind of certification to put it in, like a training program, or is it something that someone can do it fairly quickly?
It's a very simple IUD insertion. It will have a single hand inserter, and it will be very, very dumb-proof.
That makes it really good for those marginalized areas of the world that you were talking about. It's the training.
Exactly.
Curve
There's no machines, no footprint, no training. no prior requirement to be, a specific, specialty of any sort. Absolutely.
Right.
Very, very,
Right.
very easy and
And the
simple.
lifespan of one single unit, I mean, because you mentioned it has to stay in there for a little while. At least the first product I think we were talking about, it would stay there for a little while. So how long would it stay in, and is it a throwaway after that, or and a new one has to be inserted?
So the ones that really take care of chronic conditions, right, need to stay in there longer. So there's an ability to have these balls in the uterus for years. Our first product stays up to 5. The third product would stay maybe 6 or 7 years. The seed, for example, stays for 30 minutes. It's a procedure.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not a ball that stays in. Yeah, so it depends on which indication, but this could be months, 2 years, depending on what the indication is.
what the need was. Okay.
Yeah.
To get the
Exactly.
therapeutics, delivered the way it needs to, I suppose. Yeah. Very good. Well, this is awesome. So do you need to have studies? I guess you have to have the same kind of, you've had some studies done, but in the US, you'd have to have other studies done.
Yes.
So you need to go
Yes,
find your,
FDA is very specific on
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
requirements.
Mhm.
They're somewhat different from what the European Union requires and other regulatory bodies. I think in the world now there's, a change coming where these, nations are becoming a lot more aligned, but still
Right.
there's work to be done,
Yeah.
especially in women's health. There's a lot in women's health that is very difficult. Women that are that are pregnant cannot be part of clinical studies, for example.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so, there's a lot of work still to be done, but the FDA has specific requirements which we have to adhere by, of course. And, again, as I mentioned, these are expensive hobbies, but once they get to market, there's a choice for women that is just safer and less invasive. Fantastic.
Sure. Atif, I have a question for you. So as she moves into the US market and knows that she's got to go through these FDA hoops and trials and everything, where would you recommend she go first to look to align herself with the right sorts, the right entities for either those big dollar grant situations from the government, or wherever it is that she might find the money to do what she needs to do and the
Yeah,
resources?
I think probably I would see if you can partner with some sort of an academic institution that is known for their work in women's health, a Stanford or a some other organization like that would be willing to partner with you to do a clinical trial, and they can help write the grants and get the funding because they're they already have the appropriate level of I would say connections with the funding agencies.
Yeah.
So you could
Mhm.
get funding to study this. If you were to partner with, say, a professor of OBGYN somewhere at a university and introduce this to them, I'm sure they would love to partner with you. We do this all the time in academia. Academic professors all partner all the time with commercial organizations to test out their products in clinical trials with their patients. So that might be a very easy route to go, depending on if you can find someone, in an academic institution that can partner with you.
Like
And
an
I can help you.
investigator-initiated study or
Exactly,
under a
exactly.
grant or okay.
Yeah. So so if you have OBGYNs, in many of the institutions, are in an academic setting that they have to do clinical trials and they have to publish papers and so forth. So this could be something that one of them might be very interested in partnering with you on.
Great idea.
The
Great
grant,
idea.
and the grant would fund the clinical trial. It would fund
Correct.
the development of the devices, the cost of the devices, the enrollment process, the data collection, the analysis. All of that would be funded by the grant. So that might be a
There goes
one
your
way to
need
try
for
to
the
raise money.
That's right there.
That
Takes
way you sort of it's a mechanism to do a study that's impartial to any prejudices people might
Mhm.
have in a company or something like that. If this would be a very kind of unbiased type of study, and it would have very high value actually, because if it shows results that are promising, all the other organizations would adopt this. Because if it comes out of a
Absolutely.
reputable institution and there's good data, you won't have any trouble selling this. It would sell itself. So I think
Yeah.
that identifying the right organization and the right professors and to be able to partner with, that would be sort of, I would say the next step in helping. Now, you can certainly, go out and get funding yourself and do the trial yourself as well. That's another source, another way to do it. That might be a little bit more difficult, but it's all of it's doable. Just depends on.
Do you think that companies that reside outside of the U.S. would have a more difficult time to do or get grants approved for them? Do you think it has to be a U.S. entity?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, one way to kind of fight that is to just have a U.S. based office. Address. If you have a U.S. based subsidiary of the company or a U.S. presence, then it doesn't matter. I mean, you will get the grant. I mean, and that might be very easy to do. Just open up an office somewhere, and you're a U.S. distribution house, or you're trying to market this in the U.S., have a U.S. presence, and then you're considered a U.S. company at that point.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. I've got another person that I work with is doing the same thing. That is opening a U.S. based headquarters, so to speak. And we've had conversations about whether or not he wants to have a research arm or a nonprofit to take care of the research part of that, or if how he's going to handle that. And honestly, that what you just recommended to her, Atif, is exactly what was recommended to him. Go partner with a university and get that going on first, and let them work with it. And he has academia in his background, so help him.
And women's health right now is at the forefront of a lot of things in the U.S. So I think it'd be pretty easy to get a grant. And
women,
a substantial grant,
and founded
exactly,
definitely at the top.
Exactly.
Definitely at the top. Yeah. So if you do open one in the United States, make sure a woman is running it and that she has a title that's good.
Yeah. The other part of it is really, looking at the economics of the product is cost reduction in healthcare. If you can show that this reduces cost and has similar outcomes, I mean, there's no way.
There's no hospitalization.
Exactly.
There's no, footprint for
they would adopt this with open arms, right? So I think.
And don't forget, as sad as it is, these, the doctors make revenue from this in their office. They don't have to take women in the hospital.
Right.
So it opens up a huge revenue stream for doctors in their office.
Exactly.
To treat women fairly easily. You don't have to be some, some specific doctor to do something.
See, the other way to do this is to find some champion doctors in the U.S. So if you could, instead of partnering with an academic institution, if you could find a few docs that could be champions for the product, they could do the trial in their own offices pretty much without any, cost. They buy the product, they do the procedures, and they follow the outcomes. That's another way of doing it that could be cost effective and quick versus having to wait for a grant to, get funded. So.
Well, we need to get FDA to agree to that too.
That's right. That's right.
Costly and
That's right.
Fun stuff. Yeah, I had on a previous phone call, I had a gentleman that was advising another client of mine who was saying that, because we were talking about payers and that whole thing, and he was saying that the way that he got through that at one point in time is since he could not get it sold to the payer, the insurance company, he offered to the same health product to the payer's employees instead of their members, their patients that they were serving. He offered it to because this was a large, insurance company. So he offered it to the employees. Well, they bought it. And after about 15 months, then they offered it to their patients. So it was a way to get his foot in the door, and he said they were adamant. What they told the payers, we're not entrepreneurs. We don't care about innovation. We care about the numbers, and it's a tough thing to swallow, but you're in the vein though that the payer should be right there for this. So that this is good. So any final words of wisdom, Atif, as we kind of wind up?
No, I'm very excited for this. I think this is a great innovation, and I look forward to seeing it, in use. As I used to be a primary care doc at one point, so I can very much appreciate where you're coming from, and all of the hardships women have to go through. I think this is a great product, and all the best to you, and really excited to see this come to for all for all humanity to use. So
Great. Thank you, Atif. You always have such good advice. I always like listening to you because you always have good ideas. Keren, I think you might be frozen, but if you can hear me, then nope, there she goes. We're gonna wait and let her come back on to have her final word. But I don't know if it's her internet or or maybe our blow that we've got going on here with
it might be
stuff. So but we're still here anyway. So that's good. Let's see if she can pop back in. But yeah, I think, you know, coming to the United States with it is a good next step and moving forward. So Keren, you back with us? She's getting there. We got a picture at least. This is good. It's a start. No telling what she's having to deal with over there. So in Israel.
And I've got certainly, you know, some connections I can introduce her to that might facilitate, you know, adoption by primary care docs and other folks. Okay. So I can do that offline.
Well, we will. Let's see. I think she's still having some challenges trying to get back on, but we will make sure that you all stay connected, get connected.
Sounds good.
Here she comes. Here she comes. Oh, are you there? Yeah. All right. Well, Atif gave his final commentary. I want to give you a chance to give your final words. And Atif just shared that he may have some connections for you that might help bridge some gaps for you in the United States. So I want to make sure you guys get connected and stay connected. But what are your final words to everybody?
Just thank you for giving a stage for women's health. This is fantastic, Mary. Thank you. And Atif, you too. I still
very welcome.
think I haven't scratched the surface of what you know and what you can do. And so I really look forward to being in touch moving forward.
Pleasure to meet you. And I'll help you the best way I can.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Welcome.
I'm just going to say, you guys hang on for just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com where you'll get this and some more information that Keren's going to provide us. So have a little bit broader picture of what they've got going on. We see the pictures behind you, but you've got some up close pictures and diagrams of the fit and everything in the uterus. And I just think that's so important to see. Women like to know exactly how things are going to fit in the body type of thing. So that's really important to see. So we appreciate that. And I want to say, you know, this is what we do. We like to connect people because connecting impact partners is what makes it all work for everybody. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else and hang on for a bit. Bye-bye. Happy Friday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.